Hello, this is Jenny from Designs with Paper. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. I have a card making video for you, so get comfy and let's get crafty. I will be using this hummingbird stamp set from the 10 Stamps. This is one of the first layering stamp sets I purchased, and I really like it, and it has a fabulous layering guide, and it is super detailed, and that is why this is my third attempt. Yes, you heard that correctly. This is my third attempt. This is not the first time I've used this stamp. It's my third attempt to get it to stamp and line up properly today. And after the first two attempts, I went old school. So the first thing I did was pull out the first layer of the body. This is the layer that has the most detail, and I have inked that up in Altenews Moon Rock ink. And then I've pulled out the second body layer, or what I thought was the second body layer, and a sheet of plastic. I'm going old school. This plastic is just a piece of packaging from a stamp set that I keep in my craft room for just such an occasion, and I am not sure at all why it took me so long to pull it out when I was creating this card. So I will stick that plastic in my MISTI on top of that stamped image. I will take the Lava Rock ink and ink up my stamp, and I will stamp it on top of that plastic. The hummingbird beak, is it called a beak or a bill? Whatever you call it, a hummingbird's beak, bill, nose thing, mouth thing, I guess, is very thin. And if you stamp it incorrectly, it's obvious. It looks like your hummingbird is flying through the air quacking, which is why I'm starting over for the third time. By sticking this plastic in and stamping on that first, I can make sure that those details are lined up properly. And then I can go ahead and re-ink up that stamp and stamp it down to where it is supposed to be. I think I may have said this already, but I am using all Altenews inks today. And the hummingbird body is stamped in Moon Rock, Lava Rock, and Jet Black ink. Forest Glades, Evergreen, Rouge, and Ruby Red. Those are the colors I am using. And when you are using a layering stamp, you use the lightest color for the most solid images and the darkest color for the least solid images. And that's what I have done. So now that I am finished the first two stamps, I am ready to add that detail layer in. This detail layer, the third layer of the body, is the beak, the eye, and a few tail feathers. So it's really important to get that lined up properly. And I, again, will be using that piece of plastic packaging. You can't tell, gratefully, because my camera is on a good angle, but I have got my head hanging so far over this MISTI, it's a miracle you cannot see this scrunchy knot bun on the back of my head. I am all but drooling on my MISTI trying to line up these stamps. But now that I have that plastic wiped off from the last go around, I am going to go ahead and pull out that Jet Black ink and ink up that stamp and see if I have got it lined up correctly. If I don't line it up correctly, the eye will look weird, the beak will look weird. The tail feathers can probably be compensated for, but that eye and that beak are kind of important. Trying to make sure if I slide the plastic down, I can see the images, and it didn't seem like it was quite exact. And so I've gone ahead and wiped that plastic off with my stamp chamois and dried it with a microfiber rag that's just sitting here on my desk. And I am going to re-ink that stamp. I moved the stamp and realigned it a little bit. I cut that out because this is real time, and it's taken a long time. And now that I feel like I have that lined up properly, I am going to go ahead and stamp that detailed stamp. And like I said, this is real-time stamping. I did not speed up any part of this video, but I did edit out a lot of the fidgety stuff, especially the parts where you could see my head. I know that when I am looking at something that I'm finding frustrating or something that I want to improve, I like watching things done in real time. And because I felt like this was a more detailed, more frustrating stamp, a real-time video might be the best for somebody else. The next part of this bird is to stamp his throat layers. There are 2 layers to the throat feathers as well. I will be using a lighter red for the more solid, and that is Rouge, and a darker red for the more detailed feathers, and that is the ruby red color. I am still going to use that plastic sheeting because I still want to make sure I line up those feathers properly. You can tell this is a scrap piece of paper. It's not quite square, so very obviously I will be die cutting this stamp out. I just realized how weird that piece of paper looked. Okay, so I've got the pink in there. It seems like it's maybe kind of sort of right. Maybe kind of sort of not right. I'm going to go ahead and wipe that off. I feel like it's probably okay. It is the lighter color. If it doesn't line up properly with the detail color, I can go back in because it is kind of a lighter red. Just kind of shift that stamp down and fix it. But it did work out pretty well. Okay, the next thing is to add the detail layer with the darker red. I did not put the plastic in this time because there's not a ton of detail on this stamp. Like, it's not so huge that you can't just stamp around it. You could easily fix it. That's what I'm trying to say. The throat feathers are so tiny that you could fix that. Now we are on to the green feathers in the body and the tail. And there are two stamps for this as well, a lighter, more solid stamp and the darker, more detailed stamp. And I'm using Evergreen and Forest Blades Ultimate ink for the feathers. This is about the time I realized my bird looked like it was molting. And I couldn't figure out why my last step of stamping was not filling in all of those feathers. And I'm lining it up. I want to make sure that I get this green in properly because it's the cap, it's the belly, it's the tail. And as I got that green stamped, it just was kind of off a little bit still, and I couldn't figure out why. It dawned on me that when I stamped my hummingbird, the first stamp I used was actually supposed to be the second stamp. Yeah. I used the second of the 3 stamps for the body 2 times. So once I get these green feathers stamped in, I will go ahead and correct that. The things you do, I think I was really flustered with this stamp by this time. I don't know what it was about this day and this stamping process, but my goodness, I probably need my eyes checked. I'm sure I need my eyes checked. I have the lighter green down, the stamped on the plastic, and it seemed like it was exactly where it needed to be. So I will go ahead and stamp that onto my cardstock now. And once it's stamped, I really realized I had missed something. There's a big chunk of feathers on the wings missing. There's a big chunk of feathers on the throat missing. There's a big chunk of feathers in the tail missing. And it really does look like it's molting, like disease molting, not just growing up molting. Gratefully, I could go back and fix that. Now it is time to add the detail layers to these stamps. And I think that this layering stamp set is what really makes this hummingbird look fabulous. I mean, it could have been all solid one image, and I could have pulled out Copics or color pencils and colored it and added the little shading and stuff in. But having these layering details, it's faster than coloring. And if you don't have a coloring medium, this is the perfect way to get that look of having colored the stamp. Also, there's no black outlines, so it looks a little bit more illustrated versus coloring book, if that makes sense. Not that I have a problem with that. I like all of my stamps, whether they have solid outlines or not. But this stamp does have more of that encyclopedia illustrated look. And here is where I'm going back in with that, what was supposed to be the first stamp. I will stamp that up in my lightest ink, which is Moon Rock ink, and fill in those feather spaces that are kind of gappy and weird looking. Like no bird can fly when there's holes in its feathers. That's just weird. And hummingbirds fly, and they fly fast. And I added that piece of plastic. I figured it looked good. It seemed like it was in the proper position, so I can go ahead and ink up that stamp. Oh, sorry, I lied. This is when it was not in the proper position. I went ahead and put that plastic sheet in And I realized I could have been putting the plastic down first the whole time and putting the stamp on the plastic. I don't know why I didn't realize that before. Like I said, I'm traumatized today. This hummingbird traumatized me today. I don't know. I do want to make sure I get that in really, because I'm stamping over all the work I've already done. I want to make sure that it is in there just perfect. The plastic did stick to the stamp, so I did have to put that back in there. I am going to ink that up, and I'm going to stamp that, and that's probably part of something I could have edited out, but I'm all about showing you my mistakes occasionally when it doesn't take up too much footage or time. Okay, this time it feels like it's lined up properly. I cannot see any of the lines with the plastic in place, so I can go ahead and ink that up and fill in those empty spots on my hummingbird. One thing I also did was I went back in with the green inks and kind of I used the detail stamp again on those tail feathers and the body feathers because I felt like stamping over the darker green ink with the gray kind of dulled it down, and I wanted to make sure that those green feathers were nice and bright and pretty because hummingbirds are beautiful birds and their colors are quite striking. They are quite noticeable and quite striking. So I am going to go ahead and just take that light green, I think I kept saying dark green, the light green ink, and stamp that up again to make sure that it was not dulled down by the gray. And there we go. We're ready to move on and finish the card. Holy cow, it's been a whole process. I do have the matching die to this hummingbird, so I am going to go ahead and tape that die down and run it through my Spellbinders die cut machine. I have the Platinum die cut machine. I'm really appreciating it. My Cuttlebug kind of bit the dust last year, and I was really hesitant to replace it because it had been such a workhorse in my craft room. But I am really appreciating what a good machine the Spellbinders Platinum is. I am going to tape down this die. I didn't want it to shift and cut half of the beak off or something. I did not line it up perfectly. And so there's a little bit bigger border on the wing and back side. But the whole beak is there. The whole ruby red throat and the breast feathers are there. So I'm just going to go with it. You can tell that it's not quite right, but we're just going to go with it. Okay, so the next step is to get a piece of dictionary paper. This is a total nod to a piece of mixed media art I saw on Pinterest, where there was a dictionary page and a hummingbird. The whole thing is a total nod to that mixed media art that I saw. I loved it and wanted to kind of recreate that. I will try to find it again and link it down below in the box so that you can see that and so that I can give credit where credit is due. I do want to find the piece of dictionary page here that has the most text. I purchased that dictionary from Goodwill. I had to pay $2 for a dictionary that the cover was falling off of. Shame on you, Goodwill. Just kidding. I bought it on purpose. I figure eventually I can use the cover for something else. I also have picked a piece of emerald green, dark green cardstock out of my cardstock stash to create the card base. I am taking this 8.5 by 11-inch piece of cardstock and cutting it in half long ways. It will create a top folding A2 size card, US A2 size card, which is 4.25 by 5.5 inches. I'm scoring it in the middle with my bone folder. I feel like it is really important, especially when you're scoring it as a top folding card, because you're scoring and folding against the grain of the paper. So scoring it and burnishing it with a bone folder is really important because you don't have those creases and the bumps from scoring against and folding against the grain of the paper. So as I am assembling this card, I'm feeling like something is missing. I put my hummingbird down on the dictionary page. I kind of fidgeted with it and flipped the paper over and went back and forth with how I wanted to adhere this hummingbird. I got it where I wanted it. I also had a birthday sentiment on my desk from another project that I adhered, and I still was not loving this card. I turned off my camera, I walked away, I came back, figured out what I wanted to do to make it better, and didn't turn my camera on. Yeah, there's that. So in the photos, you will be able to see that I very carefully removed my hummingbird from my dictionary page. And I pulled out some Distress Oxide ink. I think I used the Rustic Wilderness Green, maybe? I didn't remember, didn't leave it out. And I put a little bit of ink on the dictionary paper underneath my hummingbird. And that made my hummingbird stand out just a little bit more. See, there you go. Perfecto. Now I'm in love with this card. Thank you so much for stopping by. Have a fabulous day. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel and watching my video. I have linked a couple other videos here for you to watch, as well as a subscribe button. If you have not done so already, I would love it if you subscribe to my channel. And if you know somebody who would like it, please feel free to share. Have a great day.